Welcome, friends. This is week 4 of our Passport to Lent. Jesus was a teacher. If you turn to the first page or second page in your packet, you will see a little thing about Jesus. You know, when Jesus was little, his mom and dad taught him, just like you, how to do things like wash or how to eat, how to make food, and all those kinds of things. And they also taught him about God and the important things about God. But when Jesus was about 6, he would have gone to school, just like you. What kinds of things do you learn at school? I bet some of you said math. In Jesus' time, they didn't really learn about math too much. They learned at their church, not at a school building, but at their church called a synagogue. They learned about the Bible, and they learned how to read and write in ancient Hebrew. If you look right here on your packet, you'll see the Hebrew alphabet. Can you find anything that looks like maybe one of our letters from our alphabet? I know one kind of looks like an N, one looks like a P. And then you can see that they were mostly written on scrolls. They didn't have books back then. They had scrolls. And scrolls were made of a couple of different things. If you look down here, this is papyrus, and that's a plant from Egypt. They would take papyrus and cut it up and take the insides and then make strips. And they would put the strips on top of each other and soak it, and it made sort of like a glue, and it got glued together. And then they would roll it out with a rolling pin, let it dry, and they could write on it. And remember, they didn't have any kind of machine. They had to do it by hand. The other thing that's really interesting is they would use animal hides. Like they would use like leather to write things. And they would take a goat hide right here, and they would take it and they would take all the hair off of it and all of the fat and all of that, and they would make it nice and flat, and then they would stretch it as far as they could on these frames. And then they would cut it into pieces and attach it to wood like this, and they would make their scrolls. Now, what's really interesting is that they don't read from left to right. They read from right to left. So if Jesus was reading, he wouldn't start here, he would start here and go this way. In your packet, you should have a piece of paper that looks like this, and it should be pretty flat. Well, this is going to be our scroll. See, the scrolls all had important things that were true about God. And so you have something that also is something true about God. But I wrote it like they would have written Hebrew. I wrote it from right to left. Now, you may be able to read this pretty easily, but if you need some help, go in front of a mirror and stand in front, and if you can't quite read, that's okay. You can have your parent or an older sibling do it for you. But go and see what it says. I'm not going to tell you. I'm going to just wait for you to find out yourself. And then after you've done that, I want you to roll it up and just roll it one way. So it's kind of bouncy like that. And then take and roll the other side. Now you can take a pencil and you can tape 2 different pencils to either side of the paper, so it looks more like this kind of scroll, or you can just leave it like this. Because in Jesus' time, sometimes the scrolls had these rods in them, and sometimes they didn't. But there's your scroll. And something else I'd love for you to do is write something special about God that you know is true on your scroll. And you can even try writing it backwards. As we said, Jesus was taught, and when he was 12, he went to Jerusalem with his family. And when they left Jesus behind. They thought that Jesus was with someone else, but he wasn't. But they found him in the temple. And because of all of the teaching that he got as a child, he could talk to them about all of the scriptures. So I would love for you to read that story about Jesus. When Jesus became an adult and then decided to follow God's plan and become a teacher, Jesus walked all over and taught people. Now what's amazing is that they didn't have any big building that they would go to. Instead, Jesus taught from right where he was. See, this is the Sea of Galilee, and this is the Mount of the Beatitudes. Jesus taught some very special things from that place, looking over the sea. But he also, if you look at this picture, he sometimes taught from a boat because everyone was so excited, and it was not just 100 people, it was thousands of people. They were so excited about what Jesus had to teach that they lined up all along the shore and up the hill so they could see Jesus in the boat. I don't think I've ever had a teacher teach me from a boat. What about you? Here are some of his teachings. We have what are called the Beatitudes, and I'd love for you to read those. And then also, on this side, not only did Jesus talk about these things that are blessed, but he also talked about how we should pray. And Jesus taught about how we should love God and love our neighbors and how to be faithful. So Jesus was a carpenter, but then he was also a teacher. And because of him, we know so much more about God and God's love. I hope you've enjoyed our travels to Israel today. And I want to end with our song. Shalom Haravim, Shalom Haravim, Shalom, Shalom, Lachit Reot, Shalom, Shalom. Peace, friends. See you next week.